Are we seriously putting her on the squad? Jake Morrison tilted his head, eyeing the group of cheerleaders crowding around the newly posted list. First black girl. And she's captain? Tyler muttered, his voice laced with venom. Zara Washington's name burned bright in a column of white, like a single flame flickering in a field of snow. No one expected the quiet, composed black girl to make it through 3 grueling days of tryouts, let alone claim a spot on Westfield High's elite cheer team. Whispers rippled through the courtyard. Some admired, some doubted. But Jake, the golden boy, star quarterback, school royalty, looked at her like she was a stain on a perfect page. Someone like her doesn't represent this school. The fans don't want to see that. His voice was low but icy, and it wasn't a statement. It was a declaration of war. Zara heard every word, but she didn't flinch. She simply tightened the strap on her bag, stood tall, eyes calm, steady, unshaken. Because what they didn't know was that she wasn't stepping into this fight alone. The dismissal bell rang. The hallway swelled with bodies and noise. Zara moved fast toward the back gate, gym bag slung across her shoulder, head slightly bowed. But before she could reach the door, Jake Morrison was already there. He stepped half an inch forward, not aggressive, just enough to block her path. So, you actually pulled it off. Jake smirked, eyes scanning Zara like he was sizing up a product on display. Not bad, but cheerleading? That's for blonde girls, girls who know their place. The words came out soft, but centuries of prejudice hid beneath that calm delivery. Zara lifted her head, her gaze unwavering. I do know my place, right there, in the starting lineup, and I earned it. Her composure caught him off guard, just for a second. Then Jake leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. Football season's gonna be real educational for you. Zara said nothing. She stepped past him. Her shoulder brushed his sleeve, a touch so subtle, yet somehow loud enough to make one thing clear. She wasn't afraid, and that was what enraged him the most. Monday morning, Zara's locker, wide open, books scattered, shuffled, like someone had searched for something, but taken nothing, just enough to leave her with that sinking feeling of being violated. She looked around. Jake stood 3 lockers down, laughing with his buddies, eyes never leaving her. Less than 3 periods later, an anonymous post popped up on Instagram, a photo of the cheer roster, her name circled in red. Cold caption, guess Westfield's going woke now. R.I.P. Real Eagle Pride, diversity higher. Zara read it, no tears, just a quiet screenshot. Evidence number 1. At practice that afternoon, Brittany, with her perfect blonde curls, kept accidentally backing into Zara's spot. Each time her foot landed on Zara's, she'd whisper, "Oops, sorry, still learning the formation." Once, Zara took a sharp elbow to the ribs, mid-spin. Another time, the seam of her uniform was ripped, just enough to expose a line down her side. Every act came laced with sugar-sweet smiles and eyes that looked through her, like she didn't belong. That night, Zara opened her notebook, wrote down the time, the names, the positions, the incidents. Document everything. Don't react. They'll reveal themselves. Her father's voice echoed. The game had begun, and she was no longer anyone's pawn. Friday afternoon, homecoming game. The whole school buzzed with energy, flags waving, drums pounding from the stadium. Zara wore her cheer uniform, lined up second row for the first time, a hard-earned step forward after weeks of relentless practice. She was texting her dad about pickup time when a hand suddenly gripped her left arm. Got a little message for you before the big show. Jake Morrison. Tyler closed in from the right. Brandon blocked the path to the parking lot. Do yourself a favor, step down. This school's not for your kind. Zara started to step back, but her shoes slipped on wet cement. 2 sudden shoves from either side. Then, splash. She fell flat into a pool of muddy water. Sharp gravel tore her skirt. Cold, dirty water soaked into her skin. Laughter erupted. Phone cameras flashed. A mocking voice shouted, "Oops! Looks like the new cheerleader forgot how to walk." Brittany held up her phone, filming. This is so going on Instagram. #EpicFail. Zara didn't cry. She just sat there, in the mud, staring ahead, memorizing every second. The sting of cold, the smell of dirt, the sound of their laughter, and the humiliation etched into her like a brand. That night, she sat quietly in the car, hands still trembling. Then slowly she typed into her phone. Enough. She didn't know what she was going to do. Only one thing was clear. She would never let this happen again. Saturday morning, 6 a.m. Zara stood in the sky basement. Hadn't fully broken yet. The place her father had turned into a private training ground ever since he left the military. Punching bags hung in still silence. Thick mats covered the floor. The light above was cold and unforgiving. The last time you let someone knock you down was yesterday. Her father, Commander David Washington, stood across from her, eyes sharp, like a briefing before deployment. Starting today, you learn how to win, not with power, with strategy. Lesson 1. Observation. Zara was taught how to track a target without being noticed. She learned how to analyze patterns. Jake always parked in the same spot, 7:47 a.m. Tyler sold vape pens to freshmen right after lunch. Brandon? He never moved without Jake, and his eyes, always scanning for a signal. Social media wasn't safe either. Photos, tags, stories, they all left footprints. Zara logged everything in her notebook. Names, timestamps, behaviors, weaknesses. At night, she trained to dodge blows, wrist throws, knee locks, how to use leverage to take down someone twice her size. Her father said only one thing. Bullies never expect the daughter of a spec ops soldier to show them what happens when she's cornered. And Zara was ready to prove exactly that. Friday afternoon. The parking lot near the football field was quieter than usual. Zara stood behind a van, hood pulled low, face hidden in shadow. Jake Morrison, so full of himself he didn't even bother locking his car. A habit, a fatal weakness. Zara slipped into the passenger side, gloved hands moving fast. She slid a prescription bottle, label scratched off, under the seat. A few pills accidentally dropped into the coin tray. The whole thing took less than 15 seconds. The door closed softly. Zara walked away, like she'd never been there. 20 minutes later, the school's anonymous tip line got a call. There's a student bringing illegal pills to school. Black Dodge. Plate number 7KX, 102 mid-practice. A sharp siren echoed across the football field. Jake froze as the principal and campus security marched toward him. We need to search your vehicle, Jake. 10 minutes later, they found the bottle. Jake shouted, protested, denied everything. Didn't matter. Cold handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists in front of hundreds of students. Zara watched from the sideline, stretching with the cheer squad. No smile, no words, just a whisper to herself. Phase 1, complete. And in her mind, Phase 2 had already begun. Tuesday, recess. Zara sat in the art wing, a perfect vantage point overlooking the back of the gym field. Right on cue, Tyler Knox appeared, backpack slung lazily over one shoulder. He glanced around. then pulled a small Ziploc bag from his pocket. 3 underclassmen approached. Cash exchanged hands. In return, vape devices slipped quietly into theirs. Zara lifted her phone, zoomed in. Crystal clear footage. His face, his hands, the bills. No voiceover needed. The truth spoke for itself. The next morning, Principal Martinez received an anonymous email, video, photos, and a Venmo receipt. The sender, an account with Tyler's full name, 3rd period, chemistry class. The door swung open. Principal Martinez stepped inside, followed by the school resource officer. "Tyler Knox, we need you to come with us." The class fell silent. Tyler shouted, resisted, but couldn't argue with the 12 vape pens found in his locker, or the $300 in cash stuffed in a shoebox. By the end of the day, a suspension notice was pinned to the bulletin board. Tyler was now facing criminal charges and permanent expulsion. His longtime girlfriend, Ashley, stood in the hallway, pale. "I'm not dating a guy who sells vapes to 9th graders." She turned and walked away, and the whole school knew another empire had just fallen. Brandon Mills sat with his knees pulled to his chest in Tyler's garage. Empty beer cans, old jerseys, and a thickening sense of dread surrounded him like smoke. Jake, arrested. Tyler, suspended. That left just him. "Aren't we seeing a pattern here?" Brandon's voice was hoarse. "First, it's pills in Jake's car, then a video of Tyler selling vapes, all right after we shoved that girl into the mud." Tyler frowned. Jake narrowed his eyes, lips pressed tight. Silence stretched, like a rope tightening around all their throats. "You're saying she did all this?" Brandon nodded, his lips trembling. "She didn't yell, didn't snitch. She just watched. And one by one, we went down." Jake slammed his hand on the table. "Then we end it." The 3 of them huddled around a laptop. Tyler logged into the school's parent portal, an old login from his mom's days as PTA treasurer. 5 minutes later, an address appeared on screen, 1247 Maple Street. No cameras, no nearby neighbors. Perfect. Jake's eyes gleamed, sharp as a blade. "We go there, tonight, have a little talk." Brandon swallowed hard. Deep down, he knew this wasn't going to be just a talk. Zara walked along the empty sidewalk, p.m. headphones in, streetlights casting long shadows beneath her feet. The night was quiet. The breeze was soft. Just another routine walk. Her father's advice for staying sharp in the middle of a storm. Then, a faint sound behind her. Footsteps, 3 directions. She glanced at a parked car window, reflected in the glass. Jake, Tyler, Brandon. "We need to talk," Jake said, voice cold as steel. Zara stopped, turned slowly, keeping all 3 in sight. Tyler pulled a knife from his jacket pocket, blade catching the streetlight. "No one's here to save you this time." Wrong. Zara ducked the first swipe, spun, and drove her knee into Jake's gut. He crumpled. Tyler lunged. She stepped back half a beat, kicked his knee hard, then struck him clean across the bridge of his nose. Blood sprayed. Brandon didn't even get the chance. A swift pivot, a shoulder throw, perfect down to the last inch. He hit the ground hard. 30 seconds. 3 boys down. The knife clattered across the pavement. From the distance, sirens wailed. Red and blue lights flooded the scene. Zara raised her hands, calm and steady. "I defended myself," she said clearly. "They had a knife, and that knife wasn't mine." An officer picked it up, inspecting the blade, engraved faintly along the handle. "Property of Morrison Garage." 3 days after the attack, a federal agent knocked on Zara's door. "I'm Agent Sarah Kim, FBI. We're opening an investigation into a racially motivated hate crime." Her father, Commander Washington, met her gaze without surprise. He nodded, calm, steady. We have everything: messages, posts, footage, and the knife. At the same time, a video leaked online, captured by a doorbell cam near the local park. 3 white teens cornering a black girl in the dark, a knife drawn, and then taken down in under 30 seconds. The hashtag number sign, Zara Washington, exploded. From TikTok to CNN, from classrooms to Congress. Zara, the girl once shoved face first into the mud, had become a living symbol of courage, justice, and the right to fight back. And on the other side, the Morrison family hired the state's top attorney, a $50,000 retainer wired overnight. The Knoxes mortgaged their home. Brandon's mom picked up a 3rd hospital shift, all just to keep their sons from a charge that now echoed with finality: federal hate crime. But the water had receded, and the mud was revealing what lay beneath. This time, no one could deny the truth. The courtroom was packed. Cameras, reporters, students, parents, supporters, and those still clinging to doubt. The 3 defendants, Jake, Tyler, Brandon, sat with heads bowed, dressed in prison jumpsuits. Zara sat across the room, white blouse, hair pulled back, her eyes no longer afraid. Judge Reynolds spoke, voice sharp and final, like a gavel striking wood. Jake Morrison, 4 years in prison. Tyler Knox, 3 years. Brandon Mills, 18 months due to cooperation and remorse. A hush swept through the room, cold as wind. Zara's lawyer requested to address the court. She rose, stepped up to the witness stand. Her voice did not tremble. There was no anger, just truth, clear and cutting, like light splitting through darkness. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted it to stop. To stop the silence, the indifference, the quiet permission that let violence and racism live inside this school. I'm standing here for those who can't. Below, a few wiped away tears. Others turned their faces. The headlines swept across every network. Black girl forces a system to look in the mirror. The school split. The town debated. But outside, groups of black students held each other, crying. Because for the first time, justice had a brown face, and it knew how to fight. 1 week after the trial, Principal Martinez was suspended. Failure to act on racially motivated hate. The football coach, who had turned a blind eye to Jake and Tyler's bullying, was fired. The school board was overhauled. For the first time in Westfield High's history, a multiracial oversight committee was formed to monitor the school environment. Within 3 months, Westfield High was no longer the same. A strict zero-tolerance policy on bullying and racial discrimination. New classes on cultural diversity and social empathy added to the core curriculum. An anonymous reporting station installed at the entrance, under 24-hour surveillance. No more hallways where the powerful laughed at the vulnerable. And Zara? She was elected student body president with a record-breaking number of votes. Just 3 months later, she received a letter from the National Anti-Bullying Alliance. We would be honored to have you speak at our national conference. About what? About how one student made an entire system change. Zara folded the letter, smiling. No one thought I could cheer for justice. Now everyone sees, and no one dares look away again. One Saturday afternoon, Zara opened her front door, stood on the porch, noticeably thinner, eyes no longer avoiding hers. Beside him, his mother, tearful, and a social worker. No arrogance, no muscle-flexing bravado. Just a boy recently released from juvenile detention, carrying the weight of his own mistakes. I'm not here asking for forgiveness, Brandon began, his voice rough, trembling. I just want you to know. I finally understand how wrong I was. Zara said nothing. No reaction. Just watching, seeing through. Brandon's mother broke into tears. I failed to teach my son how to be a good man, and for that, I'm sorry. The social worker nodded. Brandon's completed his counseling. He's written over 40 letters of apology, and he's now volunteering with an anti-bullying initiative. Zara looked at Brandon. No hatred, no forgetting. I'm not ready to forgive, she said, soft but steady. But I believe your remorse is real. She stepped outside, closed the door gently behind her. Justice isn't always perfect, but sometimes it's where true change begins. 1 year later. The auditorium at Westfield High was packed wall to wall with students. The stage was decorated in red, white, and blue, and in bold letters across the backdrop. Stand against bullying, stand against hate, choose to rise. Zara Washington, dressed in a simple, sharp blazer, stepped up to the podium. She was no longer the girl drenched in mud, kneeling in silence. She was now a freshman at Harvard, on a full scholarship to study human rights law, a living symbol of quiet strength, of courage without theatrics. The spotlight found her. She held the mic, smiled. No trembling hands, no bowed head. A year ago, she began, I thought my biggest challenge would be remembering cheer routines. Not learning how to survive being dragged through the mud because of my skin color. The room fell still. But here's what I learned. You don't have to endure it. You have the right to stand. And when you stand, you're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for every voice that's ever been forced into silence. Applause erupted, a wave of sound full of recognition, pride, and release. She stepped back from the mic, eyes searching the crowd, until they landed on the last row. Her father stood there, nodding, proud, silent, unshakable. And Zara finished with one final truth. Justice doesn't show up on its own. It begins with one person brave enough to say, enough. The story aired on the evening news. Jake Morrison, once a promising quarterback, had just received an additional 3-year sentence for assaulting a black inmate. In prison, he joined a white supremacist gang, as if clinging to hate was his last way to survive. From varsity jacket to violent offender, Jake had become just another number in the federal prison system, labeled a hate criminal. Tyler Knox sat quietly in a juvenile detention cell. Ever since he was jumped inside, after being recognized from the media, Tyler had started attending rehabilitation sessions and a program where inmates write apology letters. 3 letters were sent to Zara. She hadn't replied, but each one held less blame, fewer excuses, and a little more understanding. There was hope, but it was still a long road. Brandon Mills, after serving his sentence, transferred to Lincoln High. No one there knew who he was, and he didn't offer an explanation. He volunteered for an anti-racism nonprofit, stayed off social media, and lived by a quiet promise. You don't make things right with words. You make things right by living better. Every single day, 3 people, 3 paths. One reminder. Make the wrong choice, and you pay the price. But choosing again is always an open door. A spring morning at a national education forum in Washington, D.C. Zara Washington stood at the podium of honor, surrounded by leaders, activists, and those who had once walked through darkness. Behind her, a photo lit up the screen. Zara at 16, mud clinging to her skirt, hands trembling, eyes fixed on the ground. Then, a second image. Zara at 18, hair tied back, eyes forward, hand over her heart. The American flag billowing behind her. Her voice rang out. I don't regret fighting. I only regret that it had to be necessary. I didn't deserve to be attacked just to be heard. But if my story means one student out there never has to stay silent again, then every bruise, every tear was worth it. After the trial, Zara's story was added to the curriculum in over 200 schools across the U.S. Her name appeared in textbooks, on TED stages, and in conversations between parents and children. Not because she was perfect, but because she never gave up. And on her final return to Westfield High, Zara stood once again beneath the flag. White blouse, sunlight in her eyes, unshaken, unbowed, because from the mud, she had raised a flag of justice for an entire generation.